Hey guys, and welcome to Trash with a capital T, where trashy books and movies get all the love they truly deserve, and some deserve more love than others. I'm your host, Bobby. A little housekeeping up at the top. So new videos on this channel are released every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, although I will occasionally drop special episodes in the middle of the week on Wednesdays, same time, 8:30, but those are going to be rare and probably going to try and just stick to my normal schedule. Okay, today we are going to be talking about the 2024 release of Emmanuelle, which just hit streaming. So, we are going to be talking about a dirty movie today, which means the topic of sex and sexuality, relationships, all that stuff is going to be coming up. And I, while not being explicit and definitely not trying to be crude, will not really hold back. I need to be able to talk about what happens in these films. So, if that's not something that you're comfortable with, hey, hit my channel button. I got a ton of content up there, from Sweet Valley High to Slumber Party Massacre. You can find something that is definitely to your speed. But for those who are interested in maybe seeing what would happen to the latest entry in a long-running series of erotic films, stick around. Okay. So, Emmanuelle, as a series, is actually quite interesting. It started as a book written by Emmanuelle, our son, named Emmanuelle. The popularity of the book led to the first film being made in 1974. It was a French film directed by Just Jakin. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. And the movie was a huge hit, in no small part to its lead actress, Sylvia Cristal, who would go on to play the character multiple times over the years. The original Emmanuelle, and I'm going to really only focus on the first films. I have seen 2 and 3, but the first film is really the most interesting. The later films kind of, well, not bad and still beautifully shot and have the high production values of the first film, kind of move more into just general romance erotica territory, although the second film I will kind of be mentioning a lot when we actually get into the proper review of the most recent film. The first film, Emmanuelle, and this one is a fairly young woman in her early 20s, not a virgin, but sexually naive, who is visiting her husband, who is older, probably in his late 30s, early 40s, in Thailand, where he is working. And while she is there, she has several sexual awakenings, at first falling for a young woman, and then later being exposed to a man whose ideas on sex and sexuality are questionable at best and have not aged particularly well. The film really came at the right time. I need to check something, but this came at the boom of erotic film hitting the mainstream. So, yeah, okay. So, only 2 years before this film was released, you had the release of Deep Throat, which was an explicit X-rated film that kind of took America, and I don't know so much about the world, but definitely took America by storm. It wasn't something that had commonly been seen. It was a narrative film, a full-length narrative film that featured explicit sex scenes. Before that, there had been adult films, but mostly what you had was what were called reels, which were essentially what we have now, which were just short sex scenes that would be played. They were 8mm played on loop. This was something that hit theaters, and it was game-changing for film at the time. And Emmanuelle capitalized on that. While this film is definitely mainstream and soft, as in there is no hardcore sexual material, with the exception of one shot, it really plays hard into the erotica angle. This was a European film. European film, art house film, back in the 70s usually meant you were going to see some nudity and maybe some simulated sex, and this film did deliver. It also decided to ensure that it got its X rating. It included a shock moment. Now, thank God the later films kind of dropped the idea of the shock moment, but this one includes a shock moment involving someone smoking a cigarette in a very unconventional and probably very unhealthy way. I mean, is there a healthy way to smoke a cigarette? But this way, you know, at least the minimum you're getting is a yeast infection, if that gives you enough hints. Okay. But the film's popularity led to a series of films being made, with the second and third films being released theatrically. Post that, there are, I want to say there's 4, 5, 6, and 7. There might be more, there might be less. My count might be off. Those films are not widely available in the US. I have never seen them. And to see them is quite difficult. You have to hunt them down. Now, If any of you guys watching have seen any of the later films, so that would be 4 through 7, if any of them are worth watching, let me know because I will hunt them down. But I've always heard they're kind of not worth watching. Also, I heard there's several versions of those films that include hardcore material, which at this point I'm really not interested in seeing. But let me know in the comments. Because this is a film series that has always kind of hovered in my life. Like, the character of Emmanuelle has always kind of been present, thanks to late night cable in the 90s, mostly. Um, the character has actually moved on, and there have been TV shows. I want to say there was two. There was one where it was like a prequel series where it was narrated by Sylvia Kristal, but the younger Emmanuelle was played by a different actress. And then there was my personal favorite. My first exposure to Emmanuelle, the character of Emmanuelle, was Emmanuelle in Space, where Emmanuelle meets an alien, is whisked off to a spaceship, and has to teach an alien species how to love. And while doing this, they also encounter things like genies, and there is a whole lot of love making. The series is really fun, very sex positive, very much a product of the 90s. It was a series that was made to be safe for couples to watch. So you have very attractive men and women. Sadly, all the pairings are either heterosexual or it's two women, but with the obvious focus of like, this is for the male viewer. That brings us to 2024's Emmanuelle. Now, how would this character change as we bring her into the 2020s? A very different, but not too different world, where we are looking at repressed sexuality, a rising conservatism. So how will Emmanuelle change with the time? Because Emmanuelle, as a character, almost works as like the erotic film version of Doctor Who. She has changed forms, her background and story have changed. She herself has changed personalities, but it is always about the awakening of sexuality, or in the case of 2024's film, the reawakening of sexuality. So that brings us to Emmanuelle 2024, directed by Audrey DeWayne. I have my notes in front of me and the IMDb page, and written by Audrey DeWayne and Rebecca Zlotowski. This is, I think, the first time the series has ever actually been written and directed by women. So I thought I was very interested to see how this would be handled, since so much of the series is about female desire, but had been written and directed, even though the book was originally written by a woman, the scripts and the director had always been men. So I was quite curious how this would be handled. And to be honest, I know I'm going to give away my review a little early. I don't think it was handled all that well. Now, I am not familiar with Audrey DeWayne's body of work. I've heard great things. This I don't think was handled the best. And there were a lot of reasons, and I'll get into them. So we are introduced to our version of Emmanuelle, played by, I'm going to say this wrong, but I think it's Noemi Marlant, who is not much older. She's probably in her early 30s. But she is not married. She's an established woman. She is also established sexually. We learn very on as she is walking to the airplane bathroom, and she's in first class, of course, and she eyes this young man, and he follows her, and they have a very bland and unsatisfying tryst in the bathroom, intentionally, mind you. The most unbelievable part of that scene is the fact that two people could fit in an airplane bathroom. I was watching it just going, no, believability out the window. The smell of an airplane bathroom alone is enough to kill any desire. Let's be honest here. But this establishes a very different Emmanuelle. We don't have a character who is enjoying sex so much as she is performing it because she feels like that's what she should do. She is in a position where she is always surrounded by luxury and opulence and decadence, and she throws herself into it, but with no passion. There is no real desire other than the fact that it seems like she feels that's what she's supposed to do. She is going to Hong Kong to essentially review this hotel. She's like not a secret shopper because they know what she is, but she is what they refer to as a shark. She was going in there and quality controlling this entire establishment as a way to review its manager, Margot Parson, played by Naomi Watts. We do not get enough Naomi Watts in this movie. The scenes we get with her are quite good. Her character is kind of interesting. I just wish there was more because she seems to have this place perfectly run. She is literally running the perfect resort. but her bosses want her out. So Emmanuelle's job is to find a problem. So she is there to basically enjoy luxury, but find fault in it. And doesn't really happen. But that plot kind of gets lost until the very end. Naomi Watts pops up here and there, but they really don't give her much to do. We spend a lot of time with Emmanuelle where she just does nothing. That's it. She's just wandering around the hotel. She never really leaves that hotel. It kind of becomes this ivory tower in the middle of Hong Kong, separated from the real world of Hong Kong. And while she is there, she meets a couple interesting people. There's an interesting cameo by Jimmy Campbell Bower from Stranger Things as this commercial director or producer or something, and he hates his coworker, and he really doesn't amount to much. He has one important scene. I was very surprised they never had Emmanuelle sleep with him. Because you would think that would be like one of the things nope, never happens. All the people she sleeps with generally are nameless, to be honest. We do see her pick up a couple in a bar, a man and a woman, and another very stoic, dead-eyed scene that it seems about as enjoyable as getting slapped in the face with a 3-day-old worm fish. Yeah, which I know that part is done intentionally. We are supposed to see this character who has long been the symbol of female desire basically run out of desire. She's doing everything that these stories dictate she should do. She's having all the experiences that these stories dictate they should do, but she doesn't enjoy them. There's no fulfillment there. While she is at this hotel, she also meets a young woman who is frequently found wandering around the pool named Zelda, and it turns out that Zelda is an escort. And she is there with the permission of the hotel. Maybe. That kind of gets confirmed or dismissed later on. But her presence is known, and Emmanuelle starts to form a kinship with her. I'm not going to say relationship. While there is a sexual moment between the two of them, their relationship is not really romantic. It is very sweet, though. That is actually one of the best parts of the film, is the relationship between Emmanuelle and Zelda. And I'm going to kind of dive into some of the issues with some of the past films and why the Zelda character is so important in this film. So, the previous films take place in Asia, but feature no prominent Asian characters. So most of the characters we are following are either American or British. They are almost all white. There is one person of color that I like, black man in the second film. He pops up, I just remember because the scene was kind of sexy that he was in, but he is not a character. He is literally a body. And that is kind of the problem with some of those earlier films, especially the second film. You have this whole idea of sexual tourism where the actual residents of these countries are basically reduced to props to be used for the sexual gratification of the white characters. The Zelda character takes that idea and makes her a person. We spend more time with her, getting to know her, so she is not just a prop, and her relationship with Emmanuelle is not just about Emmanuelle's pleasure. We do learn about them, and we do learn about Emmanuelle through her relationship. I wish there was more of these two because there's a genuine intimacy, a non-sexual intimacy between these two that is something special. There is a scene towards the middle of the film where Emmanuelle has Zelda up in her room and they're just talking, and Zelda's trying on Emmanuelle's clothes, and they're just sitting and talking, and there's this intimacy between the two of them that is quite refreshing. And you start to see the character of Emmanuelle start to unthaw at this point. Noemi Merlant does and I know I'm mispronouncing her name, and I apologize. She does a very good job with the character. I do think there is an issue with the direction, but it doesn't come through with her as much as it does with the next character I'm going to talk about. So while she forms a connection with Zelda, she is also becoming interested with another guest at the hotel, a man named Kei Shinohara, played by Will Sharp. Now, her first interaction with Kei is actually after the bathroom tryst in the plane. She steps out of the plane bathroom and sees him, and he looks at her, and he kind of smirks a little, closes his eyes, pretends to go back to sleep, and she walks away. She talks to him later when she sees him at the hotel, and he's supposed to be this kind of mysterious figure that she's drawn to. And Will Sharp is a very good looking man, and he does try and give him this air of mystery. The problem is he has literally no personality. He comes off as a void of personality. And I blame the director on this one, because later on in the film, as his character is allowed to kind of open up, we do see him start feeling more human. And I enjoyed those moments. The problem is that happens in the last 20 minutes of the film. So we have to spend the other hour and 20 minutes with a zombie. There's a key scene, or like towards the center, the middle of the film, where Emmanuelle and him are discussing the bathroom tryst from the beginning of the film. And he asks her some questions about it. And she gives him this very normal like a play-by-play of what happens, so, of the sexual exploit. And I know it's shot in a way that is supposed to feel like there's a distance between them. There is no close-ups. There's no warmth. The dialogue is so unnatural. It's not even that it's uncomfortable. It's uninteresting. And because we are stuck in a medium shot the entire time, it just feels like almost like a home movie. The camera doesn't move. It's static. And I understand where they were going. I don't think they reached it. Because what ends up happening is, instead of this scene just kind of being like, there's a coldness and a stiffness and a separation to what she's talking about, like anyone else would talk about something like this and be like, oh, it's this passionate, exciting thing. And for her, she's like, it was okay. I'm more worried because he bumped my hip against this and now I have a bruise. And the way it's also filmed, and this was one of the things I was joking with because I had it on. My husband wasn't watching it, but I was watching it, and I was just joking that because of the way the camera, and it's all framed, I was just waiting for the camera to like pan over to a family sitting at another table watching the story unfold, just horrified and like covering their kids' ears. It didn't work, and because of that, it almost pushed it into absurd. The other problem is a lot of what I know they were going for, which is Emmanuelle is in this ivory tower of opulence. She has everything in front of her. She literally has sex workers in the hotel who can give her every desire. It isn't until she leaves the hotel and goes into Hong Kong proper that she actually starts to have this awakening, where she leaves her ivory tower, leaves opulence, leaves all of that, and experiences reality. That needed to happen in the middle of the film, not at the end. Because what happens is we are stuck in this ivory tower for so long, and it is cold and it is dead. Yes, she has moments where she starts to awaken, and we learn some interesting things about Key, but the reality is it's boring. It is horribly boring. Now, I am going to be honest. When it comes to erotic films, I am not a reader of erotica, but when it comes to films like this, which are made to be erotic, I am not always a huge fan. I think they balance the erotica with the rest of the film very well in this one. Nothing is overstaying its welcome. That is usually my problem with films like this, where you end up in a 15-minute sex scene. It's not interesting, guys. Most of the time. I've seen directors make extended scenes like that interesting. Radley Metzger was a master of this by making those scenes very visually interesting. They weren't necessarily arousing, but some of his camera work, and by making the camera move and the way it's done, it made the film interesting. This film does have some interesting moments, again, towards the end. Before that, we really don't actually get a lot of eroticism. We get a lot of... Sorry, my computer just shut off. I'm shooting at night. I don't normally shoot at night. Normally I shoot during the day, but I wanted to get this video done because it's been sticking in my brain. There's another reason, because this video is going to be the first video of November. And I thought it would be very funny to do a non-erotic erotica film for the beginning of No Nut November. Just putting that out there. Back to the movie. Okay. So we spend all this time at the hotel. I am literally bored to tears for most of this movie. And then finally, she gets a lighter from Key. and it has the name of another place on it. And she's kind of playing with it. And the character played by Jamie Campbell Bower sees it and gives her this story about this place that is like this den of sin where all these rich guys go and they bring these diamonds, and the women there come in and they'll swallow the diamonds, and the bigger the diamond, the more dangerous it is, but they keep whatever they can swallow. And it makes it sound like this place is this broth, this den of sin. So she leaves the hotel because she wants to find Key, and she knows that he goes to this place. She hunts him down, and she's taken through the streets of Hong Kong, and we do get some beautiful shots of downtown Hong Kong. And she finally makes it to this den of sin, and it is a mahjong parlor. It's not filled with beautiful young women swallowing diamonds. It is literally just people who like to play mahjong and are maybe banned from other parlors. It's illegal, but it's, this place is illegal, but it's not what was sold to her. It takes this idea of these foreign places being these exotic sexual paradises that we presented in the original film, and kind of flips it, where it's just like, no, this is just normal nightlife. This is a mahjong parlor. This is a nightclub. It's not, I'm sure there are sex clubs in Hong Kong, as there are in most cities, but we're not going there. This is just normal life. And there's actually a great scene between Emmanuelle and Key where they just stop at a food stand, and she and him have an actual conversation that doesn't involve her talking about getting stuck in a plain bathroom. And I watched that moment and the way it was shot, and kind of this like opening up of the character, and the opening up of Key's character, where you really start to see him as a person. And I was so freaking pissed that we did not get more of this. There is a good movie in this movie, but we do not get it until the last 20 minutes. 20 minutes. We finally get some moments. I'm not even talking about sexiness. I mean human characters where they have an emotion other than ennui. Like, oh my God. If that moment had been moved to the middle of the film and we had done what the other films did do right, which is have Emmanuelle explore the world around her, it could have been better, especially with this better handling of being in an Asian locale. The mysticism is gone. And thank God for that. I would have loved to seen a take on this film where we weren't in the mystic East. We were in the reality of downtown modern day Hong Kong. And it's just her learning to loosen the hell up. And Key learning to loosen the hell up. Because everyone in these movies is so freaking clenched. Or this movie at least. Oh my God. Sorry, I'm getting angry because there was a good film here. And in those moments, I could see the talent of the director. And the script worked. It worked. What they were attempting to do before by creating this kind of artificial environment, this artificial feeling, I know what they were going for, but the problem is they let it go too long and it became dull. I don't care if this is supposed to be a sexy film, a scary film, a funny film, whatever. If I am bored, if it is dull, you have failed. All right. So we get through all of that, and finally, after Key, played by Will Sharp, and Emmanuelle go to this nightclub, a very normal nightclub, with some weird-ass music, but a very normal nightclub. They meet a man there. The man does not speak English. He only speaks Cantonese. Luckily, Key speaks Cantonese. And he comes and sits down with them and says that he finds Emmanuelle very attractive. And basically, we get this surprisingly actually well-done erotic scene where Key, who is not asexual but not sexually driven, is speaking to this man in Cantonese and giving him instructions as Emmanuelle gives them to Key to, have some fun. And that scene works. Now, it's not to say the other scenes, earlier erotic scenes, don't accomplish what they were going for. They do. The problem is this scene ends the movie. Emmanuelle reaches her climax and the credits roll. And my husband even looked up and said, "That's it?" I understand where we are going. I understand that her reaching climax was the point of the film. Like, she found sexual fulfillment. That's fine. And actually, I'm not too worried about that. I don't feel like the film needs more sex. I feel like the film needs more characters. It needs more heart. It's so cold. There are some fun moments while she's still in the hotel, but even then they feel oddly artificial and kind of separate. And I don't place that on the actors. I fully place that on the fault of the storytelling of the film. You can do a sexy film without having to show regular sex. So I'm not saying it needs more of that. But there is no real passion or connection. Even towards the end, the character of Kia is the one that she wants to connect with, but she's unable to. Which is fine. I actually think the ending is the best part of the film. That is the one successful part of this film. I'm not saying they need to also just suddenly make Emmanuelle this smiling, happy person throughout the entire movie. Don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you needed to have more moments of humanity with her. I understand the artificiality of the dialogue between Key and Emmanuelle early on. I get that it's supposed to be, we are presented with this very typical erotica couple. Almost romance novel couple, and their dialogue reflects that. But it is handled in such a way where the character's direction that they were given was to be flat. It doesn't work because it comes off, instead of him being like mysterious, instead he comes off as robotic. For a second, I thought he might have been a sex doll whose batteries were running down. So, yeah. There are some big problems with this film, and I wanted to like it more than I did. If I was going to rate this one, this is like, if I'm generous, a 2 out of 5. It is beautifully shot. Don't get me wrong. There are beautiful moments in this film. The camera is always... And I will say, one of the things that this one does well, even though there is nudity, and the camera does occasionally like pass over certain parts of the body, it doesn't feel like we are leering. And the framing focuses more on the face over the body. And the reason this is important is because it's focused on the excitement of the person and what they're engaging in, which is important because when we are engaged with Emmanuelle in those close-ups during those erotic moments, she is blank-faced or she is almost looking pained. She is consenting in every scene. Just going to put that out there. This is not like there's anything going on here where she is not. Every scene in this one is definitely set up to be consensual. We don't get into, any unsightly territory with that. And I did appreciate that because it gave it a sense of almost maturity. It understood, like, you're here for something erotic, not pornographic. And there's nothing wrong with anything that's explicit. If you enjoy it, enjoy it. But for the what this film was trying to do, I appreciate how this was filmed. And there is one other thing I'm going to bring up that is quite interesting with this one. I know this review is going a little long. In any situation where any of Emmanuelle is involved with the man's body almost doesn't exist. We will see him kind of in the periphery of the scenes. The camera will shoot around him. There is no male nudity in this movie. But it's because the men are there, but they're not. We know that a man is present, but he is never a part of the scene. That final scene with the man from the club, we hear Key giving the man instructions, but other than that, we actually barely see Key. We are very focused on Emmanuelle's pleasure. That is actually something I think is quite ingenious. I do wish there was more of that in the rest of the film. I really wish there was more of that last 20 minutes, that life that the director was able to impart in those scenes in the rest of the film. I am kind of wondering if there might have been some issues when this was filmed due to things like COVID or anything like that, which is why we have so much separation. But I don't think there was. I think that was a deliberate choice. I think it was just handled badly. So, do I recommend Emmanuelle 2024? I do not. It is available on HBO Max if you are curious. I just don't think it's worth it. There are better erotic films out there. Heck, there are better erotic films in this series, while far from perfect, and definitely a little more sleazy. The original film, the original film's portrayal of Emmanuelle is definitely much more warm and human. Sylvia Kristal does a great job with the character. That's not to say I don't think Noemi Marlant does a bad job. I think she does a good job with what she is given, but she spends most of the film kind of looking a little perplexed because she doesn't really have much to do. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna wrap this up here. Thank you guys for coming on this review journey with me as we explore the Emmanuelle series, but specifically Emmanuelle 2024. I wish I'd had a chance to give you a better review of this film, and hopefully if someone takes another crack at this character, and I hope they do, we get something a little more lively and exciting. Not necessarily more dirty, but just a character that has the passion that it's supposed to have. Alrighty. So, love what you love. Enjoy what you're reading and watching. Have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. And I will see you guys all in the next one. All right, guys. Oh, just a reminder, new videos here every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And on that wonderful note, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!